And welcome back everyone to another weather science video where today we're going to talk a little bit about ice cover, what that does for us and how actually open water protects us, but also snow and water ratios, the snow ratios if you will. All right, so let's talk first about ice. Now obviously we all know in northern Michigan here how what ice comes from. Colder temperatures, your lakes start to freeze because once you get below 32, we start getting ice and it starts building up. And if you've ever lived on a lake, it's pretty cool when ice actually starts to get made and the lake actually starts talking at night. And big bumps and cracks. So let's talk about temperatures. Now, once we get into January, this is usually the coldest part of the year for us, especially about the 20s of January. So late January is when we see our coldest average temperatures. And really late December through January, February, and the beginning of March, we are building ice across northern Michigan, whether it's overnight or whether it's still very cold and building ice during the day. Even though our temperatures are averaging right around 20 degrees for this time of year, that's where daytime highs are, overnight lows usually single digits and teens, we usually make quite a bit of ice. Now in a pretty standard year, the Great Lakes gets upwards of 30 to 40% covered. Lake Superior, Lake Michigan, Lake Huron, Lake Erie, Lake Ontario, usually altogether is right around 40% coverage. Right now, we are currently at about 7.5%, and the reason being is we got to about 11%, but then we had some warmer days this past weekend, and now we're getting back into cold air, so it lags a little bit. But when you have the lakes wide open, that actually protects us with a barrier. So the water temperature is more than likely warmer than the air temperature at this time of year because, well, the water, it's obviously not below freezing, because it would be frozen. So that bubble, since we're surrounded by lakes, keeps our temperatures much warmer than Wisconsin, Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota. So those landlocked states where they don't have that protection bubble see much colder temperatures during this time. Great example is North Dakota. Their daytime highs are usually in the single digits and teens right now, and their overnight lows, usually well below zero. Now when you get a burst of colder air like we are going to be seeing next week, they tend to get way below zero and stay below zero, not just for overnight lows, but also daytime highs. It is not uncanny of North Dakota or South Dakota or Minnesota to go days on days and nights on nights with below zero temperatures. In fact, when I was in North Dakota, 26 days in a row, we did not break 0 degrees. That is a landlocked state, and a little bit farther north than us. For us, we average temperatures right now 20s for your daytime highs and teens for most of us at night, but a lot of us will get into the single digits. Now, with this colder air coming in next week, we will get a little bit below zero in some spots for the overnight lows. Daytime highs will be single digits and teens, or the average daytime highs for North Dakota for this time of year. So this is not going to be record-breaking cold for northern Michigan by any means. And again, it is not untypical. But we are not going to be seeing ridiculous cold because it's physically impossible with our lakes still being wide open. We have that protective bubble. So with all that being said, let's talk about ice and how it's developed. And will it develop quicker with the extremely cold air? So when you get snow on top of ice, you're actually going to see insulation layer. So when you have ice developing, clean sheet of ice, it can continue to build. When you have snow on top of it, that snow is an insulator where it just it's almost like a blanket, if you will. And it keeps the ice from continuing to build. So the deeper the snow you have on the lake, the harder it is for that lake to continue to make ice. Now, when you look at things like Lake Superior, Lake Michigan, Lake Huron, it takes a lot of energy to build a completely frozen tundra, if you will. The last time we did that was 2014, and that's when we got a lot of lake water back from the ice coverage. But it takes extreme cold. Now, once you get past such a point, it is very easy to get the virtual coverage of all ice on the big lakes. but we are nowhere near passing that threshold as of yet. Now, as we go into the very cold temperatures, yes, of course, you will definitely be looking at temperatures helping the ice lakes get much colder and ice building. That is for sure. But also, let's talk about snow ratios. So when I talk about snow ratios, if you have this little bit of, dust that we have from lake effect, very little moisture. So what I mean by that is this is very much like 20, 25, 30 to 1, which means for every 30 inches of snow, it melts down to 1 inch of rain, or water, if you will. 30 to 1, that's not going to be a huge thermal blanket for any lake. It can continue to make ice pretty well. The wetter, heavier snow, say like 10 to 1 or 8 to 1, where you have 8 inches of snow equals 1 inch of rain, that's very wet, that's very heavy. That is going to be more of a limiter in the ice making process because there's more layers to that, and with a skiff of water in between the ice and snow, that is even more of a barrier where ice cannot build. So there you go, a little fun fact for you, a little bit of visual representation. And also, just to get it out there for you, next week, yes, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, it is looking like we will have the coldest air of the season so far. It means states like the Dakotas and Minnesota will be 20, 30 degrees below zero for overnight lows, and daytime highs will more than likely not get above zero for those areas. For us, it is going to be looking at, yes, a little bit below zero for some areas, overnight lows, and then daytime highs are going to be in the single digits in teens. The other thing you have to remember is cloud cover. Still going to impact us in a very good way, but again, the biggest thing that is going to help us through this cold is our open waters. So there you go. A little bit of weather, a little bit of science, and a little bit of information for you to take to the bank. Have a wonderful day, everybody.